Hello. This presentation is about Legal Analysis by Jesse Parker. Department of Agriculture. The U.S. Department of Agriculture, or USDA, supports the President by providing leadership and expertise on issues related to food, agriculture, and natural resources. It implements and enforces federal policies in these areas, aiming to ensure food security, protect natural resources, and promote economic development. The USDA significantly impacts environmental science through research, policy, and funding that supports sustainable agriculture and conservation efforts. The USDA's work directly influences areas like soil, water quality, climate change mitigation, and biodiversity. Two subdepartments of the Department of Agriculture are Agricultural Marketing Service and Economic Research Service. The Department of Commerce. The U.S. Department of Commerce supports the President by providing expert advice on economic policies and trade matters, fostering economic growth and promoting innovation. It also collects and analyzes data related to the economy, pollution, population, and environment, providing vital information for the President. The U.S. Department of Commerce impacts environmental science through its focus on climate change mitigation adaptation, as well as its role in providing environmental data and services. This impact is realized through agencies like the NOAA and initiatives like the Inflation Reduction Act and Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. The subdepartments of the Department of Commerce include Economic Development Administration and the Bureau of Economic Analysis. The Department of Defense, or DoD, supports the President by providing military forces, serving as a key advisor on the defense policy. It also provides intelligence to aid in decision making. The Secretary of Defense, a civilian official, acts as the President's advisor on defense matters and has authority, direction, and control over the DoD. The DoD also fulfills the President's role as Commander-in-Chief by maintaining and deploying the military. The DoD impacts environmental science in several ways, both through its operations and its efforts to address environmental challenges and climate change. Activities by the DoD can contribute to environmental degradation through pollution and resource use, but it also plays a role in environmental research, mitigation, and adaptation efforts. Subdepartments are military and intelligence agencies like the CIA. Department of Education. The Department of Education supports the President by implementing and coordinating federal policies, programs, and laws. That includes advising the President on policies in education, overseeing the administration of federal funding for education, and ensuring accountability of federal education programs. The U.S. Department of Education significantly impacts environmental science by supporting initiatives that promote literacy and sustainable practices in school, fostering green school programs, and developing environmental science curricula. This includes providing resources, practices, and partnerships to create healthy, safe, and sustainable school environments. Subdepartments include the Federal Student Aid and Office for Civil Rights. Department of Energy. The U.S. Department of Energy, or DOE, supports the President by advising on energy policies, managing nuclear infrastructure, and implementing priorities related to security and national security. The U.S. Department of Energy impacts environmental science through research, technology development, and environmental stewardship. It also invests research to understand and address environmental issues. A few subdepartments include the National Nuclear Security Administration and also the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy. Department of Health and Human Services. The Department of Health and Human Services supports the President by advising and implementing health, welfare, and income security policies. The Department of Health and Human Services impacts environmental science by focusing on the relationship between environmental health and human health, and by promoting environmental stewardship and sustainably within its own operations and programs. The HHS works to understand and mitigate the effects of environmental factors on human health, develops policies and programs to improve environmental conditions, and integrates environmental consideration into its own activities. Subdepartments include the National Institute of Health and the CDC, or Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Department of Homeland Security. The Department of Homeland Security supports the President by implementing and coordinating national security policies, providing essential services, and advising on homeland security matters. The Department of Homeland Security impacts environmental science in several ways, primarily through its mission to ensure national security and its responsibility related to disaster preparedness, response, and recovery. The DHS integrates environmental considerations into its operations, complies with relevant laws, and develops strategies to address climate change. Subdepartments include the TSA and the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, supports the President by implementing and administering housing and urban development policies and programs. The Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, significantly impacts environmental science by integrating considerations into its programs, policies, and research initiatives. HUD's Climate Action Plan and environmental review processes ensure that housing projects and community development efforts are environmentally sustainable and resilient to climate change. Subdepartments does not have a formal subdepartment in the traditional sense. It is a cabinet-level agency that oversees various programs. Department of Justice. The DOJ supports the President by serving as chief law enforcement agency and legal advisor for the federal government. The Attorney General, head of DOJ, advises the President on legal matters and represents the U.S. in Supreme Court cases. The Department of Justice significantly impacts environmental science through enforcing laws, advancing environmental justice, and collaborating with other agencies. This includes investigating and prosecuting environmental crimes, ensuring fair treatment for communities affected by pollution, and developing strategies to address environmental and public health verdicts. Subdepartments include the Civil Rights Division and Drug Enforcement Administration. Department of Labor. The U.S. Department of Labor supports the President by advising on labor-related issues, implementing and enforcing labor laws, and also assisting in the development of policies aimed at improving worker welfare and economic opportunities. The Department of Labor impacts environmental science primarily by tracking employment trends and job outlooks, influencing educational pathways, and providing resources for career development and training. Some subdepartments of the Department of Labor include the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, and also the Employment and Training Administration. Department of State. The Department of State supports the President by advising on foreign policies, leading its implementation, and representing the U.S. internationally. The U.S. Department of State impacts environmental science through its diplomacy and internal collaborations focusing on areas like climate change, biodiversity conservation, and environmental protection. Subdepartments include the Bureau of Intelligence and Research and also the Bureau of Consular Affairs, which handles passports and visas. Department of the Interior. The Department of the Interior supports the President by managing and conserving federal lands and natural resources, including parks, refuges, and mineral resources. It also upholds trust responsibilities to Indian tribes and Native Alaskans. The DOI significantly impacts environmental science through its management of public lands and resources, its scientific research and data collection, and its involvement in environmental policies and regulation. Subdepartments include the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the Bureau of Land Management, and the Bureau of Reclamation. Department of Treasury. The U.S. Department of Treasury supports the President by advising on economic and financial policies, managing finances, and enforcing financial laws. The Secretary of the Treasury, as a key member of the President's cabinet, is responsible for formulating and recommending domestic and internal financial, economic, and tax policies. The U.S. Department of Treasury impacts environmental science by focusing on climate finance, promoting sustainable practices, and addressing environmental justice. Subdepartments include alcohol and tobacco tax and the Trade Bureau, Bureau of Engraving and Printing. Department of Transportation. The U.S. Department of Transportation, or DOT, assists the President by providing expertise and leadership in all matters related to federal transportation programs, including developing and implementing policies, overseeing safety regulations, and managing funds for projects. The DOT significantly impacts environmental science through its policies, initiatives related to transportation, infrastructure, emissions, and climate change adaptation. Down here are a few of the sub-departments as the FFA and Federal Highway Administration. Department of Veteran Affairs. The Department of Veteran Affairs, or VA, supports the President by fulfilling the promise to care for veterans and their family, providing them with a wide range of benefits and services. This includes health care, education, disability compensation, home loans, life insurance, and more. The Department of Veteran Affairs significantly impacts environmental science through its responsibilities regarding military exposures, commitment to environmental sustainability and justice, and its research and development initiatives. It also addresses health consequences of military exposure, including toxic exposures like those from burn pits through screening programs and research. A few subdepartments include the Veterans Health Administration and the Veterans Benefits Administration and the National Cemetery Administration. Most relevant: the U.S. Protection Agency, EPA, Department of Agriculture, the USDA, and the National Institutes of Health, the NIH, are the most relevant U.S. departments to environmental science. The EPA focuses on protecting human health and the environment through regulations, enforcement, and research. USDA plays a crucial role in sustainable agriculture, conservation, and natural resource management. The NIH, particularly the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences, conducts research on the impact of environmental factors on human health. Overall, I feel like my professional vision is most aligned with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, along with the Department of Education. Thank you for taking your time to listen to this presentation. Here's the works cited, and thank you.